Hi, this is Christian Takushi, Macro Economist and Geopolitical Strategist. I want to comment very briefly what's happening in the United States and also this effect on Israel. After the violent scenes in the United States yesterday on the Capitol Hill, it's very clear that the chances of President Trump to clinch a second term in the White House are now definitely dashed and finished. Mr. Joe Biden is now being certified as the new president-elect. And I think that the Republicans and Trump supporters will have to move on to also look at the failures that Mr. Trump has made in the last 14 months. This is not, what I'm saying is that this is not just something that happened on November 3rd and the last couple of months. For 14 months, President Trump has been making mistakes. And conservative commentators and Trump supporters have not been paying attention to those critical mistakes that President Trump and his team have been making. I actually think he's being ill-advised over the past 12 months. His strategies and policies became extremely transparent and, very predictable. Yes, it became so predictable that Beijing, the Democrats and the media could start taking advantage of him. And I think it's interesting that he didn't change his strategy, and the mistakes actually began to mount. So for me, this is being a long process of mistakes that have just culminated in some actually misjudgment of a situation. What is happening in the U.S. means that most Western nations are going to be having a liberal government in place, which will allow for the green liberal pro-globalization agenda to be resumed in force and very soon, very quickly. The fact that the Senate is now also in Democratic hand or majority means that President Biden will have the possibility to really introduce a system change. As far as that doesn't really affect the Constitution, which would call in the Supreme Court, the system change can really take place. And this is remarkable. This is remarkable because just 1.5 months ago, we spoke about a very weak Democratic victory just securing the White House. But due to the failures of the Republicans, especially of the White House and President Trump over the past 2 months, the Democrats could actually also clinch a powerful victory in Georgia, traditionally conservative Georgia. So I think that there is a lot of soul-searching due on the Republican and conservative side. Too many mistakes have been made by President Trump in the last 1 year alone. And basically, you could actually say purely politically, he didn't deserve to win in November. So I'm putting aside whatever the Democrats did or didn't do in terms of voting irregularities. I think that putting those things aside, the incumbent President Trump simply made way too many mistakes in 2020 to deserve to really win these elections. This is my personal view, and of course I think that a lot of people may disagree with me. Surely President Trump did many good things in his first three years of presidency. I personally commended him for taking those measures. For instance, reducing deregulation, improving the situation of companies, and helping the economy grow faster. There are many good things that he did, and but I think they've been unfortunately overshadowed by a poor performance in the year 2020. Yeah, this is what I personally think, and this actually means also that the state of Israel is losing its most important ally. The next 2 years could be probably some of the most difficult times for the state of Israel, the modern state of Israel, because it will have the United Nations, the EU, the United States, and China, actually, and potentially Russia too, pressing against Israel, putting pressure on Israel, the whole international community really forcing its way on Israel. Israel having just a very few, not really committed, but conditional allies and friends. So a very interesting time. What is happening now for Israel, and there is a possibility also that over the next 2 weeks, remaining weeks of the Trump presidency, Saudi Arabia and Israel may try together to retaliate on Iran for some of the things that Iran did over the past 1.5 years. So it is possible that Israel may act on behalf of Saudi Arabia, or Israel may want to preempt some of the actions that they fear Iran may be planning against it. Of course, a lot of pressure on Israel not to do so. We will see what Mr. Netanyahu decides. Not an easy call. Whatever Israel does the next 2 weeks is going to have consequences. Not doing anything, but also going ahead will have some consequences. Some people in Israel think, well, the whole world community is already against them, so what's there to lose? Well, anyway, this remains to be seen. A potential conflict or crisis in the Middle East could actually hike oil prices, move food prices higher, but also cause a hike in interest rates in the West and financial markets, something that, given the tremendous amount of debt built up in recent years, would not be good news for a vulnerable financial system. Again, the financial system is working at the moment because governments and central banks can keep printing money to finance their current expenses, while financial markets close an eye and enjoy the purchase of equities, real estate, and bonds, and also junk bonds by the central banks. Central banks are printing money and using part of that money to buy financial assets, which is keeping investors happy. But let's not forget it. Financial markets have rescinded their duty of oversight. Financial markets investors have rescinded their oversight duty over fiscal finances of governments. That's not happening anymore. So the current bond yields are not reflecting reality. This is something that will continue until an exogenous shock, an exogenous factor forces its way and actually brings all this to a halt. Endogenously, internally, very unlikely that there will be a change of this, because very simply, governments, central banks, and investors are all sitting on the same boat. So no more balance and checks, no more oversight. Governments are controlling financial markets, and they're about to actually increase that control over the rest of the real economy in the coming months and years. A very interesting time to be alive and to observe all these changes. People talk about big reset, global reset, digital currency is coming soon, and so what an amazing time. If you want to know more about our view, you can access our independent geopolitical macroeconomic research at geopoliticalresearch.com. Thank you for your kind attention. Bye.